Welcome to the Single Society. My name is Jo, and this is the podcast series where we explore all that is best in singles life, reframing the conversation to look at things in a more positive way. There are many benefits that come with being single, and the important thing always is that you have the choice over what you want your life to look like. Whether that's self partnered, whether that's in a relationship, there is no right or wrong so long as it's the decision that you are truly comfortable with. However, unfortunately, we sometimes have to have conversations and be in close proximity with people who may not be open minded when it comes to those choices and may feel that being single is somehow lesser or an option that's not accepted. Now, often this attitude comes from people who have themselves accepted the status quo and are in relationships regardless of how happy they are making them, which is something that is very unfortunate, and obviously ideally we would love to move towards a place where everybody was making those choices for themselves and felt therefore free to not judge the choices of others. But that doesn't alter the fact it can be quite hurtful and quite frustrating if you have those people around you, particularly if they persistently ask you, are you still single? Why are you single? Are you seeing anyone at the moment? And it's useful to have some tools in your arsenal when it comes to knowing how to set boundaries and how to rebuff those kinds of questions. Now, often they may be well intentioned. People do sometimes come at this from a good place. That will particularly be the case with family members, with friends who may feel concern, even if you yourself are actually quite happy being single and quite happy with where your life is. I think where this can be especially painful is if you would actually quite like to be in a relationship and have not yet met the right person. It takes time. It's much better to wait for the right person than be in the wrong relationship. So people constantly asking you questions, it does nothing to help. So we're going to have a little think about how we can respond if people are asking us, are you still single? Are you seeing anyone at the moment? One of the first things that I would always recommend doing is flipping the power dynamic in that moment. Now, that sounds extreme, but it's not. All I mean is that when someone has asked you a question, you're a little bit on the back foot because it's like your move. You have to go next, you have to provide them with information. And it may not be information that you actually want to give. So even if you are seeing somebody, you might not be ready to tell other people, you might not be ready to tell this specific person. So if somebody asks you a question that you don't really want to answer, just very calmly, very politely go, oh, why'd you ask? And it can feel like quite a bold move. I appreciate that. So you're going to soften your tone with it, make sure your body language is non-confrontational, but just saying, oh, why do you ask? Just changes everything. It completely flips the power dynamic because they then have a question that they need to answer. And the honest answer might be, because I'm nosy and a little bit insensitive, but they're not going to say that to you. Chances are they're going to get quite flustered and they will possibly be quite defensive, which is how you were maybe feeling a moment before. That slightly rude question made you feel flustered and defensive, but you flip that dynamic and now they're on the back foot. They've got to explain why they asked the question. Now, sometimes they'll just kind of go, oh, well, if you don't want to talk about it, just let that go. Just move on to another topic. Just breeze over it and talk about something else because it's a polite way, and you have been polite. You've just asked them a question. Why did you ask? It's a polite way of just moving on. You can just shift it to something else. So that is one option for you. Another kind of variation on this, if this is somebody who has asked you this question before, that is often the element of it that can be most frustrating. So something that's great, and I do this, I have to be honest, it's predominantly with people I know well, but it's not necessarily even just about being single. It could be another question that they've already asked you. And again, ask a question back. Something to the effect of, oh, do you not remember our last chat? And again, if you try and just keep your tone fairly light, you don't want to be super confrontational, unless of course you feel the moment calls for that, and that's a personal choice to make. But I think generally speaking, I'd be fairly non-confrontational and just say, oh, do you not remember our last chat? And it's a way of reminding them, we've already spoken about this, I've already explained to you where I'm at, the choices I'm making, if I'm dating, if I'm not. And again, it kind of forces them to see that they're being a little bit rude. And that is a good one because it basically gives them two choices. Either they can say no, which will be a lie, but you can go with it and pretend and just be like, oh, well, just to remind you then, and then quickly summarize for them where you're at. Either I'm happily single, or I'm open to dating but haven't met the right person at the moment, don't necessarily want to talk about it anymore right now, and move on. Or they're going to go, and this happens more often. If you ask them, do you not remember our last chat? The most common response is, oh, yeah, of course. And then you can leave it there, and that's done then, because you've already been through this cycle with them. Now, one of the most bold choices that you can make if somebody says, particularly if they frame it as, why are you single? Because that is a rude question. You just don't owe that to anybody. And again, it's, flipping the power dynamic, but in a slightly more bold way. So another thing you can do if someone asks you that is say, why are you in a relationship? And that is one, again, I would really soften my tone with that, because you don't want it to sound as if it's you're saying that they shouldn't be, because the whole point is that by them asking you, why are you single, it makes it sound as if there's something you need to justify when there just isn't. It's just one of the options available: to be single, to be dating, to be in a relationship, to be married. They're all just different options, and you've picked one. Or you find yourself between seeing people, and it's something you're open to if and when you meet the right person. So just asking them, why are you in a relationship, they may well feel that that's rude, and they might even express that to you, but then you can politely point out to them, but how is it any different than you asking about my relationship status? I've asked you the exact same question, but for the form of relationship that you have. So these are all just different ways of getting people to see if they're actually being just a little bit insensitive. I'm going to pop some more suggestions in the description box for you, so do check that out. There'll be these initial three that I've talked about and some more suggestions as well. I'd love to know yours. Please do feel free to comment and let me know how you respond if this happens. And of course, if you're not yet subscribed to this podcast, please do so that you can follow along for more content. I'll see you in the next episode.